Eagles by 8. Brady lines them up. He's back again. He steps up. He's hit. He stumbles. He is throwing it deep for the end zone, and it is batted around and incomplete. And the game is over. The game is over. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
Aloha and hello out there, everybody. What's going on? This is Miho with the Too Close to Call podcast series, joined as always by my co-host Pags, and this is the Road to Victory podcast where we're talking birds.
First loss of the season. I hate fucking Mondays when they lose.
It's been a couple of days now, and we went back and forth as to if we were going to hop right on Monday, kind of with all the other post-game podcasts that I'm sure you guys listen to, or if we were going to take a couple of days, kind of let things digest, maybe rewatch the film, and then give you guys the breakdown. And obviously here, since we're looking at Wednesday of this week, we decided to take the latter approach. So what are you thinking here now that it's been 48 hours and we're kind of festering on this 1-1 result?
Well, I think that you look at this game similar to the Redskins game. It's another tale of two halves where this Eagles offense just cannot muster up anything in the first half. My finger points to Doug. I feel like Doug, I don't know if he's the greatest game planning coach. I think he is a great coach when it comes to in-game options and what plays he's going to call in the moment. But I feel like when it comes down to breaking down this team and who they're playing, and I just feel like he's just dumb when it comes to his game plan.
I think that's hilarious because I feel like Andy Reid was the complete opposite. He was excellent at preparing his team. He was, 10, 12-0 after bye weeks. And when it came Sunday, he was terrible. And now his protege somehow is the complete opposite, man. And
yes.
Let me ask you this. So this first quarter offense has been an issue now kind of ever since the Super Bowl year. So for the past 2 years, we'll go 18 games. And one of the variables that has been a constant since that point has been the offensive coordinator, Mike Groh. And ever since Frank Reich left to Indianapolis, this seems to be more of a problem, as well as the quarterback coach who went to Minnesota. I don't know where the hell he is now, but just that whole crew, since they've kind of dispersed and we got these new names in here, things haven't been as smooth in the first half. How much weight are you putting on that, or do you ultimately think it is Doug and his responsibility to get him going?
I think it's Doug's responsibility, but I think that DiFilippo and Reich were key cogs in the game planning of the 2017 year. Like I said, I think Doug did make most of the decisions as the game went on, but I think just strictly game planning. I mean, the Eagles in 2017 were lighting up the scoreboard in the first quarter. They were scoring all the time. They were getting up to leads up 28 points. There was no doubt we were going to win that game. And this year and last year, it's just like we got to claw back in every single game. And it's just, I don't know what it is, but I think those two guys not being there, I'm not sure Groh is giving Doug what he needs when it comes to his 2 cents in the game planning.
It's tough, man, because as you were talking there, I was doing some research, and first quarter points per game, the Eagles are obviously at 0 this year, so I was looking at 2018, 3.2 points, good for 31st out of 32 teams. And jumping around here, since I'm on this site, and we can kind of manipulate the data. First half points this year, Philadelphia 6.5, which is 23rd out of 32 teams. And here we go for 2018, 9.2, which was 27th out of 32 teams. So, Pags, Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson, all of these players, all of this talent, this offense is a bottom 5 offense the last 2 years in the first half of games. How can we expect them to compete for a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl when they perform like this. I mean, this is just 8-8, 9-7, just like last year, man. If you can't score and you're playing from behind and you become one-dimensional, it's tough to win in the NFL.
You're absolutely right. And I still have faith that they're going to get it figured out, because if you remember, they struggled against the Redskins in the first game of the 2017 season, ended up coming on late and blasting them, and then had a slow start against the Chiefs that year and ended up coming back and ultimately losing the game. This year's kind of giving me that vibe. I am fully on expecting them to stick to the run game this game against the Lions and just fucking pound them into the ground. Jordan Howard has much experience against this team, playing them every year, a couple times a year. I think we're going to see a lot of Jordan Howard, a lot of downhill running, and getting this O-line not have to pass protect for 50-some-odd plays. Because you look in that Falcons game, Lane Johnson does an absolutely perfect job against the Falcons' defensive linemen, but yet Carson's in the backfield for so long because none of these fuckers are getting open, and ends up giving up a sack because he had to block for 5, 6, 7 seconds.
Oh, there were definitely
tough as an O-lineman.
Yeah, there were definitely coverage sacks in that game for sure. But Pags, I guess my question to you is, why do you think the Eagles would A, go to the run, and then B, be successful when this past Sunday as a team they had 21 carries for 49 yards at 2.3 a clip. And your boy Howard, who you talked about, had 8 for 18. They couldn't get anything going, man. And here's a stat for you before you respond to that. But Miles Sanders, 10 carries, 28 yards. I read he's the first running back in the team's first 2 games to have over 10 carries and average less than 3 yards a carry in each game since like the 1950s. This running attack has been non-existent through 2 weeks, man. So what makes you think all of a sudden they're going to get it going?
I honestly believe that the plays they run to run the ball, they were doing it just because they felt like they had to run the ball a little bit. I think running the ball is a mindset, and if they come in with the right mindset and say, we're going to stick to the run this game and pound the fucking rock, then everybody gets in that right mentality of we're going to run the ball. And I can't just have tosses, some stretch plays, a couple of fucking inside zones. I need some complex plays. I need some pulling guards. I need some super backs going into the motion, leaving a lineman unblocked, get him whammed. I need plays like that.
How about they had Jason Peters pulling around sometimes on Sunday, because I think he was doing Dallas Goedert's job, or due to the only formation they could run was literally 3 receivers, 1 tight end. They probably only have so many runs out of those formations. But, okay, Pags, you touched on a couple of different things here. Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson, the offensive line, injuries. Overall, who do you think is most to blame for what happened in Atlanta? How are you feeling? Kind of take me through your thoughts there.
First off, I think injuries was the main problem in this whole thing. If we have Alshon, if we have Goddard, or Deshaun, one of the 3, we win that game. If I'm going not strictly injuries, because obviously injuries happen to both sides, to everybody in the NFL, I would probably put the blame on the offensive line strictly with what you said with the running the ball. A lot of the time, these running backs have nowhere to go. Yeah, they stuck their head in there. They probably could have bounced a couple things out, but they have nowhere to go. And Carson was getting killed in that game. And they weren't picking up the fucking blitzes that were coming. And I think a lot of the time, that is the issue with the Eagles defense. I know I'm going a lot of different ways, but my mind is swarming from this game.
Take us through it, baby.
The Falcons did a very good job in disguising their blitzes, and that is tough for an offensive line to pick up. But you're a professional offensive line. Pick up the goddamn blitz.
Wentz was running for his life, dude, and there's no way he's going to be able to play 16 games if he plays a game like that, getting cracked in the ribs, trying to extend the play. Again, in the moment, it's what he's got to do to win the game, but we can't have our quarterback taking hits like that over the course of the season.
No doubt. And it's irresponsible for Doug to put Carson in that position when he sees that. You got to get some semblance of a run game going if you are going to expect to win that game, because Carson's just getting killed. And it's tough for him to do that for 50, 60 plays in a game.
With all that being said, though, Carson's performance in the first half, dude, just as an individual, he had a rating of 6, I think it was at one point. He had 2 interceptions. One of them the guy caught literally sitting on his ass. Who was he even throwing to? It's just, I understand it was the second string wide receivers and maybe they hadn't practiced during the week, but these guys are still NFL players, and as a quarterback, I just feel like it's time for Carson to stop allowing us as fans to use excuses for him. And I use the term excuses, I guess, loosely, because if you look at it at the end of the day, if Nelson Aguilar catches the ball, they take the lead with under 2 minutes. If Ertz runs a route, another 1.5 feet, they get the first down and they keep going. But at the end of the day, again, man, it just felt like it was the same stuff with Carson, where as good as he plays at the end of the game is as bad as he plays at the beginning of it, and I just don't want to outweigh everything with his fourth quarter performance because it's what we saw last, it's the lasting impression, because in the first half, dude, regardless of who he's playing with, he was very, very bad.
I need him to mature to the point where he's not trying to make that tough throw every fucking time. When you saw McCown go into the game, everyone's like, oh, well, he worked his way down the field. McCown checked it down when he had nothing else and got him down the field. Carson never does that. And I feel like he needs to realize that a check down pass to Miles Sanders for 5 yards is way better than a forced ball that could potentially be picked off. But if it's caught, it's a 15-yarder. Like, no. Give us the 5 yards. We'll get it on the next play.
And the frustrating part of it is, I think he's been better this year than last year with the checkdowns. It's just now the timing of the checkdowns. Like, you saw McCown come in, look downfield, and then hit Sanders. And what Wentz does is he still scans, and he may not force the football, but by the time he checks it down, the defender's already right there on the running back. So he hasn't had very little time to make anybody miss. And that's where, just overall, dude, you look at it again from last year to this year, it felt like I was watching the same team out there again, just struggle. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be in these games. But at no point did I sit there and feel like, man, we're definitely going to win this game. How did you feel, I guess, in the fourth quarter, Carson coming down? Did you have confidence in him at that point? Or take me through what you were thinking there late in the fourth.
In that first drive to take the lead 20-17, I was very confident because he was in his quote-unquote zone. I mean, what was he, like 9 for 10 or something like that on that stretch?
Yeah, once he was 8 for 8.
I mean, he was cruising, and he was making all kinds of passes that were very tough passes. And you texted me, I was like, that's an MVP drive right there. And that was. He got us all the way down the field, scored, 3 minutes left in the game. Fortunately, we get burned. And then that second series, I will be honest, I was a little nervous that he was forcing it a little too much. He made some crazy plays. I mean, we're not even talking about this if Aguilar catches that ball, because that was a perfectly thrown pass for a touchdown.
And that's where I argue with myself, because even in the drive before, while he was going 8 for 8, I was very tentative that he was going to finish that drive. Just because in years past, he struggled kind of completing these fourth quarter comebacks, or, you know, more specifically winning some close games, because I did some research, man, and comparatively speaking to Dak Prescott is 17-6 in his team's games decided by 0 and 7 points. Carson Wentz is only 8-13, dude. And that's where I keep saying these excuses that are justified. Like, oh, if Aguilar would have caught it, they would have did. Yeah, but he didn't. And you can't blame Wentz for that. But ultimately, it comes back to him in the win-loss column. So I just fight myself internally with the fact that, oh, here we go again. Oh, Carson's definitely going to do it. No, he's not, man. He's 8-13.
Well, Dak takes what's given to him, and he's a very, very smart quarterback. He's not going to force shit, which causes Carson sometimes. Like, dude, his rookie year, you remember, we're driving down the field. He goes deep to Aguilar against the Lions, which he didn't have to do, but he took a shot, and Aguilar doesn't make a play on the ball. It's picked off. Boom, Lions win the game. That's what Carson does.
Yeah,
and
or even the Baltimore game.
Kind of,
they come back and go for 2, and they don't get it. And the Washington game the week before, they had a chance but didn't get it. It's just, I feel like he's been so close, man. He's been unable to get over that hump and win these games.
And I did feel good when he scored that touchdown, and I think he gave that big-ass Gronk spike. That felt like a lot of stress off of his body right there. But then the defense is like, hey, there's 2 more minutes. You got to do it again.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's true.
Oh, God.
That's true.
All right.
So if you don't think Carson Wentz is feeling some of this, just look at that spike touchdown, because you could tell he wanted that as bad as anything we've seen in his young career.
You're absolutely right, man. And one thing before we close this out and go talk about the Lions for a little bit, thing that no one's talking about and the thing that really pissed me off, Corey Clement. No one's even talking about his fucking fumble to start the third quarter. You have 5-6 plays in there, and you're bitching, and you fucking go out there and fumble your kickoff return? Are you fucking kidding me?
Based on what you were talking about Doug Peterson, though, dude, it could have been a blessing in disguise, because coming into this week, he prepped for one thing, and then 10 plays in when all of his receivers are out, we got to do a whole different one. Then they go into the locker room thinking they're going to be down by 4, getting the football. Oh, well, by the time you get the ball, you're down 11, so that whole thing's out the window now, and just, it was crazy.
That's true.
It was crazy, man. Both times they planned for something, it went completely out the window the moment the game started.
Unbelievable, man. It just felt like we weren't meant to win that game. And when we came back, I was like, okay, let's go. This is a different team this year. And then kind of ended. But, hey, we can right the ship this week. We got the Detroit Lions 1-0-1 coming into town. Matt Patricia, Matty Stafford. What do you think?
I think the Lions are better than they thought they were coming into the year, dude. They beat a good Chargers team at home in a low-scoring affair this past weekend.
Dude, did you watch that game at all?
I saw the highlights, but I didn't see it.
Dude, the fucking Chargers decided to pull out their punter because their kicker got hurt, and their kicker missed a 20-yard field goal and 2 30-yard field goals, and the Chargers just fucking gave them that game. It was unbelievable. The Lions were ripe for the picking, and the Chargers just kept fucking it up.
Yeah, and then they tied Arizona week 1 down in Arizona. So, yeah, I guess that's why the Eagles opened as a touchdown favorite here, 7.5, I guess as high as 8.5. But I don't know, man. I thought this was going to be a walk-away victory, but that was also when I thought we were going to have our weapons. And based on some of the reports and some of my intuition, I don't think anybody who got hurt last week is going to play this week and or on Thursday, dude.
No, Deshaun's out. Jeffrey's not going to play. You hope that you come up with a better game plan. Like I said, you run the fucking football because, yeah, you got to go at least 2-2 here because going to Green Bay on a Thursday night is going to be tough, especially with the defense we have. Maybe signing Jalen Ramsey might help that shit. So we'll see.
Signing Ramsey, dude, you got to trade for him.
Or that's what I meant, trade for Ramsey.
Yeah, what are you giving up for him, Mr. GM, since you've been locked in with all the moves thus far?
I'll give a first-rounder. I'll give them a fourth-rounder in 2021. I'll give them Darby or Jones, whichever one they want.
That would be tricky, dude, and it's something they'd consider. Apparently 2 1s are on the table, and both Jones and Darby being maybe first-round talents could persuade them to some things, dude. But my thing on Jalen Ramsey is I'm not sure he puts this team over the top this year based on what I've seen.
No, I agree. Glaring problem is defensive line, but a lockdown corner could really help you there.
Well, if you say defensive line, the thinking would be then, obviously, with no pressure from your front four, Schwartz is going to continue to have to blitz more, which puts your corners on an island. And obviously, you want to shut down corner in that point. But I just don't know, dude. I don't know if I'm willing to mortgage that much of the future for a guy that I'm thinking takes them from a top 15 defense to a top 10 defense, potentially? Like, is that good enough to win you a Super Bowl? Is that worth a couple of firsts and some solid players down the stretch when you're going to need more cheap talent because Carson Wentz is about to get really expensive?
Based off the way we draft, yeah, I think it is. I'd rather have a guaranteed lockdown corner on this team.
It's going to be interesting, dude, and I don't think anything's going to happen soon, but I didn't think that was going to happen with Fitzpatrick either, and I guess ultimately they got a first and decided to move on. So it's going to be interesting to see where Jacksonville holds on the price tag.
They don't have to do anything. He's there. Like, fuck it. If you're there, you're there. If you're not, okay, we better get something good for you.
Speaking of the corners and Ronald Darby, everybody's picking on Ronald Darby, man. He gave up another long touchdown, should have been 2 additional touchdowns. He's been thrown at most commonly through 2 weeks, and the Lions have some talent on the outside, dude. They got receivers that can catch it. I just think this is going to be a tough football game with all these injuries, dude. Everybody was saying for sure W, and I'm saying that not so fast, to quote Lee Corso.
Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones Jr., Stafford could sling the ball around, so it's going to be a tough game. I ultimately think the Birds will end up winning the game. I think it's going to be closer than we had hoped or wished for, but I think the Birds win 24-21.
24 points again from this offense, man. That's going to be tough. That's the thing. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. They're going to have to play similar to they did last week, and Wentz is probably going to have another chance to win a football game, man. But if they come out once again and can't score in the first quarter or first half and they're down 13-6 or 10-6, whatever the hell it is, it's something that you just can't do against the Detroit team at home.
No, you have to jump up on top of them right away, and Doug needs to come up with some plays. I need like a play-action pass deep to Aguilar, give him his redemption back, try to get him in the end zone early, get these tight ends involved. Hopefully Goddard will be back, and we got to have a fast start. If we have a touchdown in the first quarter, I'm going to be so pumped.
Do you think 2 weeks is enough time for Deshaun Hall to get a start and get a chance here, dude, with what he did in the preseason? I'm thinking it's time to get him on the field.
Yeah, let's see what he's got. Can't be worse than what we got out there right now, dude. No one's getting pressure.
That's what I'm saying, man. And Brandon Graham continues to grade out. He gets pressures, but on the other side, I guess Derek Barnett's been good, not great. Haven't gotten a lot out of Vinny Curry. And, with these D-tackle issues, I'm thinking Deshaun Hall's earned a spot and maybe even rotate him down into that D-tackle slot, man. I don't know. I'm thinking you got to change something because obviously what's been going on hasn't worked.
Yeah, they're going to have to get creative with it, too. Bringing Brandon Graham down there, bringing Vinny down there. It's going to be interesting. The one thing we do know from Sunday is that Derek Barnett is a tremendous hustler, according to Collinsworth.
Oh, yeah, your boy. He was all over it. Look at this hustle running all the way across the field. That's fantastic.
Oh, man, he got blown up on this play, but then he hustled and made a play 15 yards down the field. Thanks, Chris.
But, all right, man, I'm going 23-16 Birds. Make sure you get that half a point because it could be the difference in you making or losing some money this weekend.
Oh, no doubt, man. Threw money on the Birds last week, and they hurt me.
They hurt you. But let us know how you guys are feeling out there as listeners. Follow us on all the social media, Too Close to Call Cast, Facebook, Instagram, the Twitter sphere as well. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Comment, rate, and review the podcast on Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts. That goes a long way to helping us spread the word and continue to grow. But we appreciate what all you guys are doing to help us out there. And hopefully the Eagles can bounce back here in what is as close to a must-win as you can get in Week 3 in the NFL.
No doubt. Must win. Go Birds. Let's get it going, Eagles fans. Later.
Peace. Peace.
Eagles by 8. Brady lines them up. He's back again. He steps up. He's hit. He stumbles. He is throwing it deep for the end zone, and it is batted around and incomplete. And the game is over. The game is over. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration